Yep, I'm
Yeah,
ready.
shall we start?
All right. Yeah.
Okay. Um, greetings. Wait a second. Okay. Greetings, everybody. My name is Ronaldo, and I'm also known as Chaturnova on the internet. And today I'm going to present a podcast alongside some friends. Here are Atokat, a fan artist who makes Fire Emblem related drawings on Pixiv, DeviantArt, or Twitter, known as Chani
Hello.
Tony. Here is
Hello.
Here is Grant, who runs a Fire Emblem blog called the Crusader Grant and is in the process of making a Fire Emblem-like game.
Hi, everyone.
And here we have Mako, who is a fellow enthusiast of the series and writes essays about Fire Emblem characters.
Hello.
We're going to discuss about Genealogy of the Holy War, um, the fourth entry in the Fire Emblem franchise, um, released in 1996, and we plan to cover its merits and flaws, its story or its gameplay, and what it has to offer to the current gaming landscape, especially with a potential remake approaching. First, I would like that we talk a bit about how we came across this game, because I think that the context of our previous experience with the franchise is important for the audience to know, and also what were our expectations before playing it.
All
All
right.
right.
Well, yeah,
Um,
who's gonna go first?
you, Atokat, you can start.
Okay, as I was telling you before, I started playing Fire Emblem back in 2003, pretty much with everyone else. So I first got to Genealogy of the Holy Wars in 2007, 8, around that time. I had already played Binding Blade, Blazing Sword, and Sacred Stones. So when I
Atokat, are you still there? They connect.
Hello. Oh, good.
Well,
yeah,
yeah, it
do you
dropped
hear
for
me
a while.
now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Oh, did I left off?
You said Binding Blade, Sacred Stones.
Oh yeah, those are the Fire Emblem games I played. When I finished Binding Blade back in 2008, I wanted to try another Fire Emblem game, and I found Genealogy of the Holy Wars had a patch, and it was ready for an emulation. So I gave it a shot. That's how I found the game.
All right. Um, what about you, Grant?
Okay, so my first Fire Emblem game was Path of Radiance. I loved the game, so I wanted to naturally play more. My dad got me Blazing Sword and Sacred Stones for my birthday, along with a Game Boy. So I played through both of those, enjoyed that. This was back before Radiant Dawn came out, so I was looking for more Fire Emblem games. I was on the hunt, shall we say, and I basically started going online. And this is when I was really getting into ROMs, and I was like, okay, are there any Fire Emblem ROMs? And I came across Holy War, and then I was like, wait, there's a Fire Emblem game for uh, the Super Nintendo. I was just like, oh heck yeah, because I'd grown up with Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VI, so I was like, oh my goodness, a Super Nintendo Fire Emblem game, yeah.
Nice. That's interesting. What about you, Mako?
Someone told me that Fire Emblem was like chess or something like that. So I played it thinking on Advance Wars, and my first Fire Emblem was Shadow Dragon. And after I played every Fire Emblem game, but I didn't finish drawing down our Path of Radiance because the step is delayed.
All right.
Mm,
As for, are you finished, or Mako? Are you finished, or did I just interrupt you?
for a short time, 2 years for be exact, not more.
Let's see. Oh, how did you get into it, Ronaldo?
Yeah, as for me, I had already played Binding Blade, which pretty much was my first strategy game, and I fell in love with it. When I played Blazing Sword, I felt something was missing, that sense of being told the story of a nation alongside its scope. That wasn't there anymore. I played later games in the series until I eventually heard about Genealogy being the best of them all. And I was thinking, okay, best Fire Emblem, let's see what you've got. And when I was in chapter 5, I was already bewitched by it. It made me feel that magic I mentioned on a higher degree than any other experience, and I was tearing up by the end of it. It became my favorite for years. Now my top spot has been taken by Thracia 776 after growing up and my taste is developing, but I still held it on a very high regard. Recently, I replayed it for another project I'm making, and that's when I decided to invite you to this podcast after finishing it. And well, that's my experience with the game. Uh,
Nice, nice. Right.
well, I would,
I find interesting how most of us went straight to Genealogy and not the other Super Nintendo Fire Emblem games.
well, it helps
Yeah.
that genealogy has a very strong reputation in the fan base.
Yep, that's true.
Fun fact: when I originally played Holy War and Thracia 776, I didn't play them translated. I just played them in their original Japanese.
Oh my god.
I had
How
How
to
did
kind
you
of learn.
make it?
Why'd I make it?
No, how
how
did
did
you
you
make it
make it?
alive?
Oh, sorry. I kind of had to learn via trial and error because at that
Oh,
point I was starting to notice the similarities in how Fire Emblem menus work. So it's like, oh, this has an attack option, this has a weight option, and so I just had, and I think that's the beauty of the emulators and ROMs. It's like, oh, I can go back if I mess up.
That was my experience as well with Binding Blade. I played it in the original Japanese, and then I got to the English speaking ones. But people told me, people taught me how to play, so I didn't went trial and error. But getting through that game blindly and in Japanese is a very curious experience to say the least. So,
yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, what were you going to add?
No, I was just going to say that playing in an emulator it's really fun because I played in the emulator that has the backwards option that you press and you go back a few frames. That was awesome. It helped me a lot during the game, and now it's an official feature in the franchise. It's in Mila's turn wheel.
Yeah, that's interesting how they managed to implement it, even if
Yeah.
there are, but it creates certain questionable habits, to say the least. Well, back to the topic, I would like to start talking about the storyline in this game. And I think that in order to understand effectively what genealogy sets itself to do, one has to be aware that genealogy was created as an sort of historical epic. And when taking a look at Shoso Kaga's previous work, it actually makes sense and it becomes obvious because his sensibilities as a storyteller have always been like this. There is enough individuality and background on each character to give them a life, but his stories have never been preoccupied with the inner struggles. His body of work always takes influence from classicism on that regard. It's distant, it increases the scope to the community rather than the individual, which to me is the key difference between epics and novels. And that's, or at least that's what I've gotten after attending some lectures about this topic. I don't know what do you believe about this. Did I talk clearly or?
Yeah, I understood you. Oh, well, I'm gonna say that, yeah, I mean, it's clear that Kaga knows his storytelling really well. And I see his work, and I see he's inspired by many classic literature works, mainly from Greco-Roman literature. So, and those stories tend to focus more on what you say, on the epic aspect, and focus on the character exploring, presenting the story through the character's interactions with the world, creating a more expansive experience. So he really does apply that in his games, and that's one of the things I really like about his work. And despite the technical limitations he has, he manages to create this expansive and rich world just because he uses that story mechanism.
It's interesting that you mentioned the influence of Greek literature because the the Famicom games have this Greek Roman aesthetic to it. So it also becomes clear through this influence, through this aesthetic influence that uh, he wants to create epics. He wants to tell the story of nations.
Yeah, it's the basic for many stories in the world, man. What can I tell you?
What do you think, Grant, about this?
I definitely think something Holy War does really well. Something that struck out to me is that it does the best job of portraying a medieval world. Because Fire Emblem's supposed to be Japan's take on medieval Europe, and a lot of other Fire Emblem games kind of go for the more generic Western fantasy type of thing that J.R.R. Tolkien popularized. But Holy War, it feels legit medieval. Like you've got house trees, you've got backstabbing. You've got a lot of political machinations going on. You've got lots of knights and lots of house this, house that, and a lot of dukes with their own territory and standing armies, which is a lot more like how Western Europe was at that time. That's something I feel like Holy War does really well, and I feel like that structure really hooks you in that dark, very medieval atmosphere. And then you add stuff like the incest, and that's just like, oh my goodness, you know. And I actually kind of joke that this is like I nicknamed this a Song of Ice and Fire Emblem because Song of
Many
Ice and
people make
Fire.
that comparison. Yeah.
Yeah, even
Interestingly enough, Holy War came out. I think it was released about a month before or after the first book in that series.
yeah, I was just going to add that, and it was released before A Song of Fire and Ice.
So I always like that. It's like, wow, these two very medieval, very dark stories came out roughly the same time.
It was a good age for incest-like stories. The golden age of the Lannisters.
Best of
David,
the game.
David,
Albus
that,
the Lannister. he's Ginger Lannister.
okay. Uh, I wanted to go back a little bit about what you said of the technical limitations, Advocat, because it it made me wonder: has any of you played Turing Saga?
I have.
I played about half of it. My ROM just totally glitched out, so I have to go restart.
Have you played Turing Saga, Mako?
A bit, but I didn't finish it. Someday we can talk about
Well, the reason I'm mentioning this is because one could argue these qualities we have been mentioning could, especially this idea of being distant and interacting with the world instead of focusing just on the characterization, is the product of system limitations. But that game, that Turing Saga, which is for the PlayStation and released in 2002, I believe, was still structured like this, even with the technology in his hands. So I believe that this this choice to make the story like this is deliberate.
You feel that was his intention?
I think that at the very least, Probably since genealogy onwards, probably it was deliberate.
Yeah, I remember a couple of interviews on CyranousForce.net where Kaga mentions that from the get go, his whole mindset was this game needs to feel epic. It needs to have this really big scale. Um, and that actually was the major reason why the maps are so huge, is he wanted to give this sense of, this is a total war. This is, bigger than anything we've ever seen. I think that.
Yeah, I would like to discuss more about that when we come to the gameplay and the design of the game, because I think that we all have to focus a little bit on the story for a moment, because it's important to understand the game, or at least
Right,
its appeal. But it's a good
right,
observation. It's a good observation, Grant. And I'm mentioning all of this because there is a considerable amount of people who felt emotionally detached of genealogy, saying that characters aren't well developed, that there are plot devices, etc. And those people have been introduced to the series throughout the localized games, which have a very different tone, to say the least. As we know, there is this individual called Kohei Maeda, who is very different from Kaga and has written um, most of the games after Kaga's departure. And from my observation at least, he's more of a romantic writer as a counterpart instead of Kaga's focus on classicism. He's more worried about individual struggles, about relationships, about more about the personal rather than the community. And in other words, he makes novellas, he makes novels.
Yeah,
Uh,
It
as you
comes.
said, this game feels medieval and romantic, but isn't like fate. I mean, this romance is good, is logic, understandable.
I couldn't under I couldn't listen to you very clearly. Could you repeat it?
Yeah,
yeah, same here.
that this game, as
Hmm.
you and Ren said, feels very medieval and romantic, but this romance isn't like the romance of fates, or I mean that this
Yeah,
is more logic and the story with this is good.
I understand what you mean.
Yeah.
Um, well, it's not that we are comparing it to. Uh, yes, you're right. The story in genealogy is very different from what Fate sets itself out to do. I remind you that Maeda directed also Fire Emblem Fates, as well as writing Awakening and Blazing Sword and Sacred Stones. He's to him, he's more he's more of a sentimental writer. And if you look at his works, it becomes obvious. It becomes obvious at what his works deal with. With Blazing Sword, it's about perpetuated violence being spread through bonds and revenge. Sacred Stone's emotional core is about the acceptance of having lost a friend. And Awakening is literally about bonds overcoming fate. I mean, this idea of relationships being important uh, is prominent in his work.
Yeah, he kind of Maeda kind of goes for a more a standard way of storytelling with a more common themes in Japanese media. The whole I am gonna overcome my fate. I'm gonna fight this stronger force through the power of love and friendship. He's more he stays in that. I guess we can call it a safe zone because it's a very cheap but effective way to tell a simple story, which I guess he doesn't like to complicate himself a little bit more with the school of storytelling that Kaga tries.
Yes, it's true. Since uh, the the structure of novellas is pretty much the common standard nowadays. Because when you think about reading literature, when you think about reading books, you think of prose. You don't think of verses like epics used to be. You think of characters. You don't think of grand events. You don't think of grand communities as it used to be. And the point that I am trying to make across with this is that from its very conception, the game is unlike anything that people have come to expect from this series, because it's people have been introduced to Maeda's writing, but Kaga attempts to do something completely different, and I think that's the probably the explanation why a lot of people feel emotionally detached from the game, because this game is more distant, more more about the interaction with the world rather than the feelings of the characters.
That's a good
Well,
point.
yeah.
Going back to the safe zone comment, highway to the safe zone. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. I love the Danger Zone song, so I heard that and had to go
We all
for it.
do, man. We all do, no problem. I am more of the playing with the boys fan myself, but that's okay.
Anyway, yeah, I do agree that it's a lot less romanticized. I guess it's a lot less about feelings and relationships. I mean, Fire Emblem is always anime-ish to an extent, but I think that the newer games they do kind of tend to take that a lot more. What Ronaldo was saying, sentimental side. It's like, oh, I got feelings and friends, and our bonds are just gonna be so awesome. And it's like you don't really get that quite as much with Holy War. It's much more darker, and it's you know the it feels like the impacts of the villains are also felt a lot deeper too.
Yeah, I think that Alvis is probably one of the villains that makes you makes you feel bad about killing him. I mean, you at the beginning of the second generation, you obviously want to murder him for what happened,
Oh yeah.
but when
Yeah,
you realize when you realize what happens, what his life has been after all this time, you just don't feel really satisfied at the end of it. I don't know if
I think that
I don't know if it has happened to you because of his background or because of what how he has been manipulated by Manfred, how and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the point of the game because it's not so black and white. There are shades to everything. And when you get to see Albis kill your units, you get mad with him. You, oh my god, I want to kill this son of a bitch. But then later in the game, you begin to see how he has been living these years, and you understand his side of the story, and you begin to see, oh, well, he's not that bad. I mean, and he does kind of redeems himself at the end, trying to give the sword back to Salip and free the children and do as much as he can to help Salip overthrow his own son, which at that point has gone completely out of control. And I think he fights Salip at first. When I was playing the game, I didn't understood quite well why he did it, but on retrospect, I think he kind of did as a way to punish himself or to for his actions because he felt, well, I've lost everything. I lost my wife. I lost my kingdom. I lost. So I just want to end it all, and that's how he wanted to punish himself. And then at the end, with the conversation Salip has with the ghost of Sigurd, it kind of nails the point on this is not as black and white as you think, Salib. He had his own demons and he had his own problems, so you cannot paint him as this 100% bad guy. And if you do, you're not understanding the point of this word. I like that part, and I think that summarizes well Albi's character, in my opinion.
I believe that scene is I believe that scene is beautiful. I always get emotional whenever I see Salif meeting his father for the first time, or meeting the ghost of his father for the first time, and also telling him that he has to, he doesn't have to repeat past mistakes, because that's to me the point of genealogy. The point of genealogy seems to not repeat uh, past mistakes, to because Kaga said on an interview that the main theme the main idea that he wanted to get across is how people's mistakes can shape the world, And with this inclusion of the second generation, he also gives the hope that that future that the future generations, the children that we raise, are the hope to redeem ourselves. Which is, when you think about it, kind of what a lot of families do. A lot of families put the hope of the hope and their dreams on their children.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I definitely come across a lot of that where it's like, oh, learn from this personal mistake. That's actually why we read history. In fact, is figure out what the past's mistakes were, but don't repeat them. These are bad things that happen in our history. Just don't repeat that. And history can be very cyclical in that regard.
Yeah, and I love how the game turns the player expectations, uh, and in how at first you hate Albus, but then after you see everything, the player goes, yeah, I'm not so sure anymore, and it leaves you thinking, and I like that.
I also like that feeling. I also like the feeling that a game leaves me thinking even when I turn it off, because it feels like the game is alive even outside of the game. It captures me. It possesses my imagination, and that feeling is very very impressive to achieve.
Yeah, and I don't want to digress that much, but I love that's how they make likable villains. I mean, they're still evil. You still hate them for the things they do, but you kind of understand them, as opposed to the modern games who take a more, oh, you did something bad. Well, it's not your fault. You had a shitty childhood, so it's okay. We forgive you. I don't like that approach.
Yeah, I agree with that too. That's a cliche I see in a lot of anime, and I know Fate's had that. It's like, oh, you did all these horrible things. That's okay. It's no big deal. And it's like, wait a second. What?
That reminds me. Has any of you read the manga, the Osawa manga?
I've read
Uh,
most. I've read most of the first generation. I need to catch up.
I haven't.
Okay, the thing is that they managed to give Manfroy a sympathetic background. For some weird reason, they managed to give Manfroy a sympathetic background about
Oh
his
my god.
childhood as well. Of all
Oh
people,
my.
I
How
can.
so?
Oh yeah, if I remember correctly, it's about how Manfroy got persecuted as a kid, right?
yeah,
Oh
and
my god.
burn it at the stake alive with his parents and his sister, I believe.
Yeah, something like that.
It was crazy, but but for some reason, I don't think it's that undeserved, because it still ties into the idea of genealogy, of repeating past mistakes of repeating past mistakes, and these mistakes being cyclical, as Grant said, because uh, in the background, in the lore of the story, um, the Lobto Empire was powerful and oppressed people, and when they were thrown out by the Crusaders, the they became oppressed, and and the descendants of the Crusaders made the same mistake that the Lobto Empire did, and the payment they receive is that the Lobto Empire wants to overthrow them, which is where Mindflow kicks in. Mindflow is also a victim of of this cycle of sins, to say the least.
It's a cycle of hatred, and the oppressed group then gets to power and rules over the oppressors, and eventually become the oppressors themselves. And
Exactly.
then they go again and try to overcome them, and then the cycle repeats over and over again. That's what you're trying to say, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, totally agree. I
By the
agree with
way,
you that. Oh, sorry. Go on, Marco.
don't worry. By the way, I'm reading the chat, sorry, and someone says that something about the manga. Fun fact, in the manga, Trabant is in love with Evelyn. That is something that is a little random, but in the game, that should be amazing, we can say.
You know what? At least in the original translation they made for the game, not the new one right now, I kinda got the vibe that Travant was in love with Etlin or had some sort of attraction toward her, but it was very, very slightly hint.
I also believe that, and I believe that the reason is, uh, that's the reason why he kept Altena, because of some sort of regret for what he did to her parents, for maybe for Edwin in particular.
Yeah, I agree. I know they've talked about a little bit because I know when Altena's trying to turn on Travant, he actually mentioned something about her being like her mom or something. So it's like, huh, these two kind of have a history together.
Yeah, yeah, he can make that connection, so he probably knows her at some point.
Okay, I wanted to talk about now that we have settled down that genealogy works as an epic. I wanted to talk a bit. I wanted to talk a bit about how it's kind of how it's structured. The first generation to me is kind of a tragedy, but it's a tragedy in not in the common sense of well, tragedies are sad. They have sad endings. No, no, no. But um, the idea is that tragedies have to evoke some sort of emotional catharsis through depicting a person who is at his prime, uh, declining and deteriorating because of his ideals being overcome by fate or something. And when you think about it, it's in genealogy, or at least the first generation, it works. It works because Sigurd is this particular hero we kind of see in those epics. The game also introduced the idea of fate and destiny in its prologue. I believe I should written a quote, a particular quote that I found noticeable. It says Grand Calendar 757. It was this very turn of events that cracked open the door of fate. No one at the time could have recognized this forewarning to the disastrous events to follow. The game, from the very beginning, already tells us that this is not going to end well. And did someone want to add something?
Yeah, I can remember hearing say reading that, but I guess many people don't take it seriously because whatever, it's the intro. Until you get to that famous point and you go, oh my god, right in the feels.
Yes, it's right into the fields. But I think
I
that
think
the yeah, Grant, what?
I was about to say that I think some of the major tragic elements of Holy War II is that nothing Sigurd does is his fault. With a lot of tragic heroes, I kind of just roll my eyes because it's like, well, you're an idiot, you got what you deserve. But in
Oh
Sigurd's
yeah.
case, it's like, um, Manfroy, just manipulates everything from behind the scenes, and Sigurd's not even aware of any of this stuff. And then all of a sudden, Alva is just like, "Oh, by the way, I got your wife. You're a traitor. Here, die." It's like, oh my goodness. I don't know if there was any way Sigurd could have prevented his fate, which at least to me makes it all the more tragic because it's so unavoidable.
He
Yes,
takes
that
advantage of his nobilities. That's what you say, right?
Right?
what I didn't understand clearly.
No, he takes advantage of Sigurd's nobility.
Of Sigurd's noble nature, you mean? Yeah.
No, yeah, he takes advantage of his noble nature because look, shit is happening all over the country. Can you help me? Oh yeah, sure, I'm gonna help you. But he knows because Sigurd's a nice guy, he's gonna do it. But he's just manipulating him. I think that's what Gran is saying, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think there was there was a way that he could have prevented all this. He didn't know it, but or maybe he did, but it was the warning that was given him in chapter one. Don't follow that girl, and he does.
Yeah, they tell him, do not fall in love with that woman. That woman is cursed. It's bad. You don't want to do it, but he does it anyway.
Yeah, and and I think that's his tragic flaw. His tragic flaw is that um, I think that Sigurd is sort of an idealist, okay, and he's this character who defies challenges and can overcome challenges. And this one is one he took, but he couldn't overcome, and that's his tragic flaw, his idealism, to say the least. And the game actually makes a good job at drawing parallels of people who involve themselves in wars because of their ideals. We have Eldigan in chapter 3 who dies because he believes he can convince someone to stop the war. So we have what else? We have the other captured. She's captured because she, even if people say her no, don't do it, she goes for Sigurd. We have Mania's death who and Silesia's defeat, and we eventually have Quan and Eslin's demise in chapter 5. There's a pattern common, and the game actually does this to as some sort of a prelude of what's going to come, what's going to happen to Sigurd. Like these characters have involved themselves in wars because of their beliefs, and they're going to be punished by it. And now Sigurd is also in the same situation, and he's going to
Yeah,
get screwed. And I think that the
it,
game does have an effective job at building these parallels, and at the same time building some sort of emotional crescendo because you get somewhat attached to these characters. You know who they are. You know their relationship with Sigurd, or with Lewin, or or your army. You get somewhat attached to them, and they die. And what do you
yeah,
think?
it's a very well, everything is very well put. I think my only complaint about it is that they don't, or at least they aren't very clear enough on what happens to the other characters. I mean, you just see Sigurd get attacked, but you don't get to see what other characters, what happens to them in that moment. There is implications that some of them weren't present, and some of them were, and they died, but some of them escaped. Like, I mean, the game kind of implies that Aideen, for example, she left to that city in Isaac and she took most of the kids with her. And I think that's my only problem. I think it would have made more impact if the game told you what happened right there with all the characters instead of just telling you having to kind of guess it.
I actually kind of agree with that. I remember one of the disappointments with the manga is that the manga author doesn't actually kill off that many characters in, when the chapter 5 part of the story comes around. And I think that does the story a great disservice. That did the story a great disservice because part of the impact is, oh my goodness, what's happened to these characters? I actually kind of agree. I know this might be jumping the gun a little bit, but if Holy War had a remake, it would be really cool if it was a little more clear on that. It's like this character died, this character's not dead, and I think Thracia kind of helps with that a little bit because I remember mentioning how Fury was. She actually survived. In fact, now that I think about it, don't almost all the female characters except for Ira survive anyway?
Yeah, man, most of them survive. Yeah,
Because I remember the thing is Sylvia survives, but then she just dumps her kids off in an orphanage and leaves. It's like, why not just kill her off?
yeah. She leaves the children then, and we never know what happens to her afterwards.
Wasn't she petrified or something?
No, that's Lachesis.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Lachesis does that.
that's implied.
Yeah.
well, regarding Ira, I do at least wish that the game recognized the impact that Ira's absence has had on the children, because the manga actually does this, and it does to a good degree, that the children are still wondering if their mother is still alive, and they
Yeah,
still have
yeah.
the hope if that their mother is still alive. I think that only with just that element will be enough for Ida, even if we don't know her ultimate fate. Just that element will be enough for her for her absence to be perceivable.
Yeah, that's true. If they do make a remake, which honestly I hope they don't, but if they do, well, they can expand on that a little bit, but a little bit. I hope they don't change it and try to make it more melodramatic. That will suck.
Agreed. Agreed. Although it would be kind of nice to see a cutscene of Chapter 5 and you see in more graphic detail just what happens
Oh,
to these characters. Ah! I think I'd probably get nightmares.
Hmm. I
yeah.
I don't really agree with that assessment. Sadly, I think that um, I don't think that it's necessary to to attempt to impact the player like that, because I don't know if you're aware of this, but people tend to accuse genealogy of of having shock value, and this particular scene being just there for shock value. And if the scene set itself out deliberately to impact the player like this, it will be more prone to this sort of criticism, at least to me, and it will be probably even more justifiable.
I get why. Well, as far as the thing about shock value goes, it does. Well, I think that's the thing. It's that unlike George R. R. Martin, who admitted that some of his character deaths were done specifically for shock value, I think here it actually does expand the story. It does actually play out. Um, and since we were just talking about the themes, it does work well with what the story's trying to do with the themes of the story. But I don't know. I think having a bigger impact might
Hmm.
be actually more shocking. I don't know.
The thing is, will that affect the rating of the game?
Oh, that's a good point.
Well, now that we have covered the first generation, we can cover a little bit the second, because it's more because at first glance it's far more conventional. It's shows a young man destined to save the world from the oppressive empire. But for some reason, that particular part is the one that connects with me the most, and it's the
The
one.
second part,
Yeah, the second generation. I like the second generation the most out of the two.
same.
Oh, oh, really? I always thought the second generation story wasn't quite as good as the first. It doesn't feel like there's as much politics, I guess, and there's
Maybe
it's a
because
lot more straightforward.
it's a more traditional Fire Emblem story.
Yes, it's far more traditional. This is why I said it's fairly conventional when on paper, but I think that the reason why it works more effectively than, let's say, Mark's story is that we have experienced Selif's loss. At, we have experienced Selif's loss in through the interactivity. We have had Sigurd for half a game, and now we don't have him anymore. He's gone with the entire army, with the entire parents, and we just have this little kid whom everyone has a lot of expectations for. Olfei and Shannon pretty much adore Sigurd and put a lot of expectations on Salif, and this actually affects him. He also says in dialogues that he doesn't really feel all that prepared for the task that everyone expects from him.
None of them are really. None of the children are prepared, but they have to. They are thrown into the action.
Yeah, they have to, and that's probably what I like the most about Salif, that he he says in the same conversation that his main motivation to keep going forward is the joy he sees on the people whenever he manages to save them. He's he's a very altruist person. I think that in the world of job role, that's that stands out. That's very respectable because it's not hard to become cynical in that world because that's part of the idea of the first generation. Ideals don't have place in this world. It's also part of the idea in Thracia. Ideals don't have place in this world, but Selif pushes forward, and that's what I like the most about him.
Yeah. In my case, in my case, I like the second generation mostly because yeah, it's a complement to what we have seen in the first generation. It feels we have seen them at their lowest, and now we see the game trying to recover from that low point, and the struggles the children have to go to, in a sense, amend the mistakes of their parents, kind of.
Mhm.
So that's what I like about the second generation and the characters, the way I think the narrative they have, it's more appealing to me that whole yeah, these children are have suffered a lot in life, but most of them are pretty optimistic and want to do their best for the land, for themselves, for their families. They all have different motives, but all of them want to do the best for the world, and that's what I like about them.
Yeah, I would say more than happy. They're hopeful. They have hopes for to amend, as you said, their parents' mistakes, and they have hope for a future. That's why they fight, and
Yep.
yeah, yeah,
It
that's something I consider valuable of part of
it
the message of this game. Yeah, what did you want to say, Grant?
it was, I think Leaf sort of embodies this ideal the best because
Oh
we
yeah.
play Thracia 776 and we see Leaf we see that Leaf's life has been really rough. He's always on the run from Grand Bell. Anyone who befriends him either dies, turns to stone, or nearly dies. So it's sort of interesting how a character who had so much reason to be cynical, and yeah, he's always trying to carry on his father's dream of the united Thracia front, and that dream just keeps pushing him forward. And yeah, it's actually a big reason why I love Leaf so much is that he embodies this perfectly. You can almost say he embodies it better than Self in some cases. It's like, oh,
Well,
okay, I've got like these little mercenaries. I've got this little band of beggars and thieves and farmers, and I got to make an army out of it somehow.
well,
Yeah,
he has had it rather than Salif, honestly.
yeah, he has had a very tough life. I admit I like Sleep the most out of the two because I think that the part of having expectations, that everyone's expectations are on you, and you have to live up to your part, to the to what your to what everyone expected of your father, is kind of a big deal and kind of a burden for everyone. And I think that's a more human sentiment to me. But I do agree that Leaf is also embodies this, and he has it had it rougher, and he's also one of my favorite characters anyway. So I wouldn't complain anyone preferring him over Salif.
Oh, I see the little chat Attica. He's a Master Knight though. Oh, that one's. I love Master Knight class. It's so
Yeah.
awesome.
What about you, Mako? I believe you have a lot to say about Leaf.
Yeah, I will say a lot of things, really. And well, Master Knight, he can do everything. It's very nice. But in Tracia, he's also good, but more as character.
Yeah, but what I think I what I
Yeah,
expected to hear what
yeah.
do you like about
As
him.
Rinal says, Leif is underrated as fuck.
Yes, he's kind of underrated in 3776. People think he's a low tier lord. Put him alongside I don't know Shadow Dragon Mart or something when he's actually
The, fu-
pretty good.
the funny thing is that the the people that says that Leif is a bad lord is the people that only played the Game Boy Advance and 3DS games.
That's an interesting observation. I'll have that in mind whenever I meet someone who says the same, who says that Leaf is bad.
I honestly, at least I never seen many people complain about Leaf. Where do you see that?
I've seen that a lot. In Farm Wars of Dragons, it said
Uh,
Leaf is not a good lord, and
well,
a lot of people in Reddit say Leaf is not a good lord. In There's this guide in YouTube by Model Omega which says Leaf is not a good lord.
Oh, good, no, please.
oh my God, no.
Have you
I
seen?
I'll I'll confess I used to think Fire Emblem Five Leaf was bad. I haven't thought that way for a while, but it's like uh now I understand because I mean a lot of the good strategies is like stuffing him with different rings, for Manster, and there's also and there's also the fact that he's got a huge amount of support utility.
Yeah, that's true. He supports a lot of people and is supported by his beloved Nana.
Nana, yeah.
Leave times Nana, what an awesome couple.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's another thing I like about Kaga. His couples are usually very good.
My favorite is Salif and Tine. I don't know if it's
Tina,
Tine. Yeah,
Leave him Nana for me. Leave him Nana for me.
For me too, the same.
I think that what I like the most about Salif and Tina as a couple is that um, first that Tina manages to achieve indirectly what Hilda always wanted to become Empress of Granville, but she does it in a very honest way, without any pretense, without any machination like Hilda does. So it's actually very ironic on that regard. But uh, that aside, um, I believe that they kind of help each other to develop themselves as characters because Tina has suffered a lot. He's a person who has suffered a lot through her childhood, and she's very insecure of herself. She has very low self-esteem. But once she meets Salif, she eventually begins to open up more, and Salif also learns from being with her. At the end of at the end of the game, um, Salif directly states, "I won't be repeating the mistakes of my father. I won't leave you alone."
Yeah,
Fun
that's really
fact
good.
for
Yeah.
your couple. In Japan, uh, Fairy and Tini are more popular than Leif and Nana. That's very random.
Are
What?
what?
There's a lot of fan art of them,
Oh yeah. I have quite a lot of it,
I have
but I
seen that.
never knew it was that popular.
but I don't understand why Seri and Tini. But well,
Cause they look really cute.
I have a lot of panels of them in my PC.
Same here.
I I always thought of Salif and Lana and Aideen's daughter because they seem to, at least in my playthroughs, they always get the lovers, and it's like, oh, maybe they're destined for each other.
That's kind of seems to be the more logical choice for Sleep. At least that's what the game tries to tell you. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we can agree that Selig gets along with pretty much everyone.
However, we all know what Sleep's true love, right? even though we
Julia.
try to deny it.
Don't repeat the mistakes of your dad, huh?
God damn it.
Well, they don't have low tier blood, so it's okay. It can happen.
They don't have what?
They don't have low tier blood, so it's okay. It can happen.
Hmm. Well, you can make them a couple with jealousy.
Or they can have a three-way relationship thing. That's okay. That's also they can do the jealous system forever. The four of them.
Okay. Well,
It's always weird because everybody tries to ship Salif and Julia, and I'm like, no, negative love growths. And as far as we're concerned, jealousy doesn't exist.
I do wonder too if they do a remake. How are they gonna implement that? Because in Shadows of Valentia they implemented the thing that you can kill Duma with Nosferatu.
Oh, that's a good point.
yeah, I think they should preserve it because otherwise it's a big pain in the ass to pair a lot of couples in LTC.
They're gonna put Larcey and Julia talking. Bitch, what are you doing? What are you doing here?
Okay.
Just make sure they don't get the guy who wrote the who writes some of the dialogue for Face to do like jealousy shit. I could just see it right now. They're doing the jealousy system, and all of a sudden, all the women are just like verbally knifing each other. It's like, no, don't, please,
Oh my god.
That's
no.
gonna be awful.
That scene with Camila and Hinoka, I remember you mentioning it.
Oh gosh.
What?
He
Oh,
has
no.
chosen me over you. Get over it, bitch. That's what Camila says, right?
Freaking Camilla. Oh my gosh.
All right. I think we should. I think we have all an idea of what the theme of the game is about. This is about not repeating the parents' mistakes. So I think we can come now to talk about the gameplay. And
Wait, before that, why don't the characters? Which are our favorite our favorite characters?
yeah, it's true. Our favorite characters. I mentioned Selif, but if I have to, but that's pretty much cheating. So if I mentioned another one, it would be Tile 2 because she is the best mother in the world.
Yep.
The abnegation she has for her children is unparalleled for anyone I've seen in the entire Fire Emblem series.
The entire cast of Awakening and Fates could learn from her.
Yep.
Moral of the story: don't abandon your child in Narnia time. Actually, raise them. If I had to pick a favorite, I'd probably pick Leaf. I mean, I like him both as a character and as a unit, because I mean, unit-wise, he's a flipping master knight. But as a character, he goes through so much crap in his early life, and it really feels. I think both Thracia and Holy War give you the sense that he's literally had to claw every success he's ever gotten.
That's
Yeah.
probably why he admires Selif so much because he hears that Selif has just liberated Isaac like that, just like in a second, and he wonders how did he do that. He's kind of like a fanboy for Selif, which is understandable, and it's nothing
No.
wrong with that.
No, not at all. And because Thracia is just a war-torn hell
Yeah.
at this point. Like, good grief, man. Just, Leinster gets burned to the ground, and like in Thracia 776, we just see bandits all over, pirates all over. Grand Bell Empire takes whatever it gives. It's like, how do you lit? And he's always on the run, too. We want to know who the best father figure is. Gotta be Finn.
Yep,
Yeah, Finn,
best
Finn,
father
yeah.
ever.
Love Finn. Oh my goodness, he is like the pet. He is the ultimate loyal knight. Loyal even when he doesn't have much of a chance, a reason to be. You know.
What about you, Atokat? What's your favorite character?
Oh, you know that already, but I will tell you. Lachesis is my favorite character. I love Lachesis, man. She's this really interesting character. I mean, she starts as a pretty much bratty girl who has a very shallow outlook on life, and then this obsession with her brother that borderlines in incest, and then she gets to meet other people, interact with them, and has that whole cheating thing, which it's pretty much unique in Fire Emblem, as far as I can remember. Like at first I put her with Beowulf, and when I got to hear their dialogue, I was like, oh my god, I cannot believe that. And then I got to read the whole thing with Finn, and yeah, it's true. She cheated on Beowulf. What the hell? But I really like her a lot, and then how she develops from this bratty girl into this strong, mature woman who has to go through hell for her children. She has to go back and forth between Isaac and Leinster for both Nana and I forgot the
Delmut.
name.
Delmut.
Delmo, thank you. Yeah, and he has to go back and forth between Nana and Delmo, and then her sticking around with Leaf, influencing a lot of Leaf's personality as well, and eventually in that journey, suffering while ending up petrified in the Grand Desert. No, I'm sorry, Gil Desert. It's a very interesting story how she goes from this really bratty girl to this awesome fighting woman character. That level of matureness she reaches, it's very powerful to me. She it's a woman who made mistakes in her life, and she regrets those mistakes. When Beowulf leaves, she feels sad. She feels, I did not want to hurt you in that way, I'm sorry. But then she has to work to overcome those problems, and I really like that about her. She left a big impact on me. That's why I like Lachesis a lot.
Nice. That's a very uh, accurate description. Um,
Yes, I could say she's second best mother in the game, in my opinion.
what
And
about
then what?
you? Yeah,
I'm
what?
sorry. Sorry, go
That
on, Mako.
yeah, I wanted to ask Mako about her favorite character.
Yeah, Leif is the best, my favorite. And you also know why, but I also like Safi. Well, I know it's from Tracer, but anyways, Seti and Lewin Arthur, and I love the way in that the rela- sorry the relationship with Seti and his father.
You mean you have said art? You have included Arthur as well. I heard.
Well, the family of Seti with Arthur, and that also is great. But I know that Seti Arthur is better, but I like more the family with I forget her name. Uh, Five?
Fee?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. I think I get what you mean.
So one of the guys in the chat asked for our thoughts on Eldigan, on Lacase's older brother. So what do you guys think?
Well, I don't like Camus character, the Camus archetype, so I don't
Me
like him.
neither. I don't like him at all. He's not the worst Camus, though, but he's really bad, pretty bad.
I do have to admit it is pretty stupid just how loyal he is to Shaggle. I mean Shaggle when he doesn't really have much of a reason to be, because it's like, oh, I'm gonna throw you in jail. Nope, I'm still gonna come back to you. It's like, wait, what? Shouldn't he just be shouldn't he have joined Sigurd? I think that would have been better. Although I agree with Ronaldo that the Camus archetype in general hasn't been very well done. I think it has to do with how sometimes in Fire Emblem their portrayal of black and white isn't always as it should be.
I think Selena is the worst of them all. Like, Jesus, man.
Oh, the chicken Sacred
Fire.
Stones, right?
Yeah. Oh my God. How many times do they tell this woman that guy is bad? And she says, I know, but I want to stay. I want to stay. Like, they hammer it so hard. Like, oh my God, if you're staying, I'm sorry. You're stupid. I'm sorry. I don't feel sorry for you.
Even if that's
There's
the
also-
point.
Yeah. There's also Xander and Birthright, because it's like, hey,
yes.
all your siblings are turning to Corrin. Nope, father's always right. Here, let me cut down. Here, now I accidentally cut down Elise. Well, still gotta kill Corrin anyway, even though I said I wasn't gonna.
Yeah, who wants
No.
cinnamon rolls?
Huh?
Who wants cinnamon rolls now?
What cinnamon rolls now?
But it's interesting that we talk about Camus because, to me, in my opinion at least, genealogy also happens to have the best Camus archetype in Ishtar.
Yeah, Ishtar. Ishtar is really good.
Now, Ishtar, on the other hand, she could arguably be the best Camus. I mean, if I recall correctly, I remember reading on Reddit this really cool analysis where it was like, her father kind of views her as a weapon because, we see him give her the Thor hammer. And then her mother is trying to gold dig through her.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, yeah.
I think that what I like the most about Ishtar is that even though she's involved in this manipulation and she can't escape from it and she's pretty much screwed up, she at least tries to do something, which is something that the other Camus dudes don't do. You get what I mean? Ishtar
Right.
tries to help with the children, tries to help to free the children, and other Camus characters just stay with their leaders, even if they know that their leaders are wrong.
I think what also helps with Ishtar is that she does have a legit compelling reason to stay. Aside from what we mentioned, Seliph does kill her army because he kills Ishtar, her brother. We kill him in chapter 7, and then we kill her father in chapter 8. So it's like, why would she leave the bad guys?
Yeah, that's true. I think that the only flaw with Ishtar, the only pretty crappy thing about Ishtar is that in chapter 10 there is this dialogue with Julius where they make a game on who can kill an ally
The
of
most.
us. Yeah, who can kill the most. And she's all joyful, and I'm wondering, what the fuck? Yeah, but
Yeah, that seemed like it kind of seemed like one of those ideas where it's like the designers knew that they wanted to have him in there to make the chapter more challenging. They hastily scribbled a story reason later.
yeah, that's pretty much sad. But otherwise, she's easily the best of the bunch, to my opinion at least.
Yeah, her, and I actually like Camus himself.
I don't like Camus in Shadow Dragon, but I like Camus a lot in his other appearances.
Yeah. I think that's his main advantage.
Yeah, and he chose well. He chose well whom to stay with.
Yeah.
Oh, comments in the comment section. And maybe meaning Ishtar, knew Julius before that Loptier book thing. I think that's a valid point.
Yeah,
I
that's
think they can imply that too. I think.
because that would make sense. I would actually be okay with like a remake having flashbacks. So when Julius was just a normal kid and he and Ishtar kind of interacting, that would be nice.
Yeah, it could explain a lot and justify her actions a little bit.
And it would kind of show that Julius wasn't always a monster. That might be a good thing.
Yeah, if they do make a remake, I mean, the remake has potential, but the same amount of potential it has for greatness, it can screw up a lot if they do it wrong.
Definitely agree.
Yeah, they can. I don't really trust intelligent systems at this point because I am fully aware that to start with, they have a different sensibility right now to what they used to have. We just have to see the difference between Gaiden and Shadows of Valencia, which I don't want to say which one is better or worse, but it's definitely different because Gaiden is more like what I described. It's more distant, more hey, this is the story of Valencia, whereas Shadows of Valencia itself is the story of Alm and Celica, and it's a different approach. And what I mean about it with all of this is that maybe their different approach, their intent to translate genealogy to modern sensibilities might make the game lose a bit of its appeal.
Yeah, agreed. That's
So
kind
are
of
you
why I'm
gonna?
trying.
Yeah, go ahead, Grant.
That's why I'm trying to make my own Fire Emblem game. It's like I don't trust intelligent systems. They can't if they're not gonna make a game exactly to my liking, then I'm just gonna make my own. That's why I'm trying to make the Dark Crusade.
Well,
So are you gonna talk about the gameplay now?
yeah, I wanted to talk about the gameplay now. Um, now that we have covered the story, I think that the first point we have to talk about the gameplay is the maps, as Grant said a while ago. And he said that I think that it's interesting about the gameplay because when we think about Fire Emblem, we think about these grand, grand stories, these great narratives about heroes saving the world. And the analogy is an historical epic, not only just on its storytelling, but also in the way it designs its world. And it's probably what I feel is the most misunderstood thing about genealogy. Because when you think about it, genealogy is the game that comes the closest to the ideal we have of Fire Emblem, the ideal of Fire Emblem as this great narrative, by doing exactly the opposite of what we expect of the series.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I know a lot of people are just like, oh my gosh, the maps are just so boring. I hate backtracking.
Yeah, I wanted to get around that. The maps are there because they are there to create suspense. They're to create suspense, and this comes at a risk. It comes at the risk of feeling tedious. I don't think it's tedious because the game tends to last as much as other games in the series. But if I have to mention 2 points where that complaint is justified, it would be um, chapter 1 in the Spirit Forest and between the first and the second castle of chapter 4. I did the first one because it's all forest and the pacing goes down the drain just by trying to get across a forest. Your
It takes
movement
a while, yeah.
your movement is limited, and I think that an LTC takes 21 turns or something, and yeah, just because of the forest. That's not a nice sentiment. And the other one is and the other one is a bit more complex because I think it's a big missed opportunity that they limit your access to Silesia just to showcase what is basically a cutscene. There's no way to describe that part of the game as a cut, as other than a cutscene. And I think it's a missed opportunity because it limits your reaction and it limits your interaction with the world just to present a story event. And the game itself actually manages to achieve something more effectively next chapter in Doors of Destiny by in Quan and Ethlyn's test without the need of limiting your movement because
Oh yeah.
because in the desert, in the Jet Desert, in Chapter 5, you see Quan's army approaching, and you see those Dragon Knights with the Horse Slayers, and a natural reaction could be to go and save them,
But
but
you can't.
you can't exactly, but you can't.
I mean, you can, but it's hard.
That's you can if you LTC, you can quote unquote if you LTC and finish the castle in 2 turns of something, or if you have grinded Ethlyn and Quan and they activate some broken skill or something. But in normal gameplay, in casual gameplay, it won't. You can't. And even if your reaction is to save them, you go there and you feel like you've failed, and that's a hard
Oh,
sentiment.
oh, Ronald, but if it's in casual gameplay, it's okay. They're gonna revive at the end of the turn, no problem.
God damn it, God. But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
Don't worry.
definitely.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that in Silesia, they just they just cut you access to they just cut you access and force you to watch a cutscene. And that's the opposite of what to me a video game should do because video games are personal experiences. They are interactive. They are not necessarily watching something as a spectators and feeling insignificant. Well, insignificant, yes, but that are that we can interact with the world. So that's why I think that part is a disappointment and why it can feel tedious.
Yeah, but
What
yeah, yeah. Go ahead, Grant.
I actually agree with something that one of the comments said is that at least the Fire Emblem 4 desert map doesn't last the whole map. Um, it's only just one part of the map, which I do appreciate. Because I mean, I've never liked I've never liked desert maps in general. I think they're kind of tedious and they over incentivize flyers. In fact, on my current Fire Emblem 3 Book 2 playthrough, I'm playing on the desert map and it's kind of a slog. So at least I can appreciate that element of Fire Emblem 4. It's like, okay, the desert map in the first generation is at least a little more limited, and in the second generation, you don't. The entire map is not just desert.
It also helps that there is a way uh, to get through the desert very fast when either with with the rescue stuff more than anything.
Hmm.
I think that there was a strat. I think that Checky made a strategy to get past a big portion of the to skip a big portion of the desert with just the rescue stuff, just to make Sigurd to make someone rescue Sigurd, and then Sigurd appears to the other side of the cliff, basically skipping the desert.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, Cheeky discovered that in his LTC.
That's impressive.
But yeah, those are the portions that to me are justified. But otherwise, the game isn't really all that slow or all that. Uh, it doesn't last that much compared to the newer entries because it lasts. The LTC currently is at 150 turns. So, and that's pretty much the duration of Blazing Sword.
To me,
Wow.
I like it because it I feel it helps the narrative of the game. This whole different factions fighting each other, and you mobilize your piece. You take one piece, and you have to protect that piece from others. I think that helps the narrative a bit, and I don't think it's boring. I don't know why people find it boring or tedious myself. Uh, it's a very different type of Fire Emblem game, yes, but I mean, it's still Fire Emblem, so you move by turn, so it's okay. I don't see the problem.
Agreed. I mean, I was in high school when I first played Holy War, and it never bothered me. It still doesn't bother me right now. I mean, I'm not going to pretend like they're the best design maps out there for their not Thracia level design, but at least at least they serve a purpose.
Yeah, they serve a purpose, and something that people don't tend to mention is that these maps are an exact representation of Yggdrasil. They because if you uh, copy and paste the maps of genealogy next to each other, the end result is going to be the entire continent. This means that every map is connected to each other, and the idea of this is to represent some sort of uh, well, I've talked about how Kaga wanted to to make an historical epic, to make an epic, and a big part of this is to feel that you're conquering a war. You're conquering a war across the continent, and when the game portrays an exact copy of the continent with maps connected to each other, it gives a sense of um, of where you are in the continent and well where you are in the continent and how long how much you are getting across the continent to conquer a war.
It feels like civilization or Total War. Like you get to see the expansion of your territory. Like I like that.
What do you think, Grant?
I'm.
No, you continue, Advocat, sorry. Proceed.
Oh,
Did you?
oh, sorry. Was it me or Atacat? I'm sorry.
Advocat wanted to say something.
Oh,
It got caught or something?
You were saying something. You go ahead.
No, no. I just wanted to say that what you were mentioning it's that it kind of reminds me of Civilization or a Total War game where you conquer land and you get to see the expansion of your land. That's all I wanted to say. I like that.
Yeah, it's an interesting feeling, and it ties in into this idea of historical of an epic, as I was saying. What
Oh well, because I mean because in the point is that you are thrown in this. You have to gain territory for your faction. So you have to go struggle fighting people, armies, and people always throwing you enemies to defend themselves until you capture them. You capture something, you have to, in some cases, protect that castle because if you leave them protected, they can come and destroy it. So it does make you think a lot.
I'd kind of like to see more of the home castle getting attacked because I think it happens two maybe three times.
it never happens to me.
Oh, oh. So what about the final chapter when Orion, is trying to? What do you do there?
I just use the rescue stuff and skip Orion and take. You can skip Orion and just take the castle without him even attacking you. It's hilarious.
I wasn't expecting him when that happened to me when I played the first time. And when he appeared, I was like, oh, fuck. Oh my God, where is the, I need to transfer someone there quickly, quickly. And then I read, oh, you can recruit him with Altena. Okay, Altena, go there fast. Fly, fly, baby, fly. And she made it. unfortunately, before he got one to one of the castles.
Hmm. Well,
Yeah, that I remember Orion messing me up the first couple of playthroughs. It's like, oh my gosh, he's right there. Oh! Funnily
Yeah,
enough, I think the last time I played it, I actually wrecked him with Shannon.
with Shannon.
Yeah, Shannon can double attack
I
him, and he has enough power to actually bust through the defense.
I use arrest.
That works.
I
Yeah,
use
yeah.
Art. I use Arthur, but I'm a pleb, so I'm a casual player.
I tried using mages the first time, but he fucked them all. Arion is toad. He's toad.
Yeah, I think that the key to defeat him is Forset is to use Forseti because that two hit KOs him, and he won't be able to even counterattack or something.
You know
But
what's funny? It is on the Thracia map. I've actually had Seliph be able to run around the entire army of Thracia and seize the castle.
yeah, that's what I meant.
Oh, sorry.
You can skip Arion's army and just save the castle without even facing him.
It's like capture the flag, go with an army.
It's hilarious. So yeah, but I think that Kaga stated in an interview that he kind of regretted that the strategic depth of the game was lost because of his intent of making a narrative. But I don't think that the game really loses that much. I mean, let's be honest. It doesn't pressure you as much as Tracia, but the amount of uh, the amount of resource managing that is in this game is nearly unparalleled or even unparalleled in the for the rest of the series because um, you have to build kills for the weapons. You have to take into account the the money you have. You have to take into account the stat boosters you have. You have to take into account the what else? The skill sets for the children. So
Hmm.
there is a lot to plan around in this game. It just
Oh yeah,
happened.
someone was asking about the skills a little bit earlier in the chat. I remember.
Well, I missed that question.
Oh no, they simply mentioned them, so I guess you're going to talk about them, right?
Well, yeah, I'm talking about how this how this adds a whole layer of resource managing that isn't that other games in the series don't have, and it's probably unparalleled on that regard.
Yeah, I actually do. Actually, I think I mentioned this back when I did like my 10-part series of blog posts about Holy War, but it's like with the second generation system in Holy War, you have to think about a lot more different angles and variables and different things than Awakening or Fates, because Awakening or Fates, if you have children characters, it doesn't really matter what weapons the parents have, because the children can just buy whatever and they can just bust their own weapon rank. But in Holy War, you don't have that as much. It's a lot more limited, so you have to give your kids the right stuff. You have to give them the right skill set because they don't really get that anywhere else. And I think that really impacts the amount of thinking and planning that you have to do. But it also gives each pair their own unique identity. That's something I didn't notice as much about with Awakening and Fates. It's like, oh, this character will just give this one skill, and then you just kind of mold the characters themselves. But in Holy War, yeah, there's a bunch of different things that just bounce off the wall, and I love that.
Yeah, and to me that this layer of strategy is interesting because it because of what you say. the the parents are decisive. The parents are decisive to the children's performance, in because these children are what you are going to use during half a game. In Awakening and Fates, children are mostly irrelevant. You can, other than Lucina and Morgan, you are not going to use any children in Awakening, and in Fates, you won't even use any of them at all. So the mechanic is actually pointless. But in Genealogy, it's not just decisive to your performance, but it also ties into the theme of the game about how decisions end up shaping the world. And gameplay wise, this is also conveyed through this mechanic because um, because at the end of the day, it's the decisions and mistakes you make as a strategist with their parents, with their relationships, with everything, every resource management you do, that end up shaping how you play the second generation. And the mistakes you do will also have consequences there. Pretty much the mistakes of the sins of the parents being uh, paid by the children. You get what I mean?
Right. Definitely. And then there's also what? I think their money is affected too.
Yeah.
Hmm. So, so yeah, I think someone in the comments is pointing out that in the children characters in Awakening and Fates are just units with no story. They're kind of just fan service.
Mm-hmm.
The children in Awakening, yeah, mostly.
Well, I don't tend to think too much about the children and awakening. I just, to me, only Lucina and Morgan exist and no one more. I, I'm not very interested in the rest because they cost turns, their maps aren't fun, and I don't know. There's no motivation for me to even use them. Whereas in genealogy, well, I would like to optimize that for my performance to improve in that game.
Right.
Besides, in Awakening, ultimately, it doesn't matter because you can find ways to overpower the children just by switching between classes and stuff. So it's there's not much strategy there. But in Holy War, you have to.
And I think it also has a nice balancing effect too, because in Holy War, the parents and the children are separated, so you can make your children as powerful as possible, and you don't have to worry about them overshadowing the parents. Because I mean, in theory, if you have both the first and second generation, you have to figure out the difference in power between the two of them. That can lead to all kinds of negatives.
And the dialogues of the parents getting together, it's actually good. It's not, oh, I made you pie. I love you.
I don't know, man. I don't know, man. All that pie. My baby.
Oh, god damn it. I don't want to remember those dialogues. Anyways,
Yeah, it could be a very good pie in her defense.
but I believe that an issue that could be caused by this approach is that I think that an issue that could be caused by this approach is that the game could become uh, well, it ties a bit into what people mention of the tedium, and maybe this resource managing makes the game less approachable for a lot of people. What do you believe? Did I speak? Didn't I speak?
No, and sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
Okay. Um, what I was saying is that um, this ties a bit into what people mention of the tedium, but I don't you believe that maybe this approach makes this game less approachable, less accessible?
I don't know. I mean, this whole accessibility thing. I think it's mostly dependent on the player's willingness to immerse themselves into the game. Like if you really want to play the game, you're gonna get around and learn the things it has, no matter what it presents you with. But if you just want just a passing experience, then they're not gonna bother. But in fairness, they're gonna do that with any game they play. If it all depends on how much the player want to invest in the game. So I don't think that's a limitation, in my opinion. Mm.
What do you think, Grant?
I think accessibility is overrated as all heck. I
Yeah.
mean, every time Fire Emblem was trying to be quote more accessible, it usually gets dumbed down and not in a. And I mean, I'm all for trying to help new players out, but some of the extremes the new games take is just ridiculous. Like what freaking Phoenix mode, or just like nerfing units down, or like the game trying to oversimplify stuff. I mean, I don't really care about accessibility. I have zero qualms about going online and reading a strategy guide to figure stuff out.
Well, you have to take into account that strategy guides don't exist if you buy the game at release time. What in my case, well, I do put a lot of value on accessibility, but here's an interesting experience that has happened to me. Um, I I have a sister, and she has, and the only Fire Emblem, and I attempted to get her into Fire Emblem, but after Blazing Sword or Sacred Stones, the only one that made her interested was genealogy, and that's the only one that she followed to the end. And not only that, I have also another friend kind of who is averse to RPGs. He's averse to RPGs, and he played Blazing Sword, and he completed it, and he didn't like it. He dropped Sacred Stones, and he was going to drop out the series completely until he played Genealogy, and he finished it, and he thought it was pretty good actually, even if he was a novice. So maybe maybe we overstate how little accessibility there has been in the series, because as far as I can tell, the franchise was born out of out of the desire to make strategy games more accessible. It was created with the idea um, of making them more accessible to more people, so that and that instead the drama, the feelings have to be generated through the simple mechanics.
Yeah. So what would you suggest about it? What would you think it's so you think it's the game should be a little more accessible, or there should be a balance?
In the case of genealogy, there are already too many variables, so I don't think it should uh, overcomplicate itself more. But maybe if we remove these layers of strategy, it would lose a bit of its personal expression, because these mechanics have a purpose. These mechanics have an expressive purpose, as I said, to convey what consequences your actions the actions of the parents have on their children, and how the consequences are going to shape the world ultimately.
Yeah, I think that the gameplay ties heavily with the narrative, and that's a common thing Kaga does in his stories. He tries to he I know there's a division in the fandom between story and gameplay, which one you should focus more. I think Kaga's mm, grace is that he tries to implement both to complement the other. He uses the gameplay to tell the story in a way, like you see mostly this in Tresha, and he uses the story as a complement to the gameplay. So I think that we should see more of that, because we really haven't seen that since, I mean, I will say I don't know. Fire Emblem Seeds. I don't know.
I would say since Tracia. Binding Blade still had some excellent design, but um, a lot of, but that was the point where the franchise stopped uh, building its building its gameplay, integrating gameplay and story together, because it was made by other people. It was made by Toru Narihiro, and these guys makes the Wars games, Famicom Wars, Advance Wars. It's a different approach. So I think that Kaga had the idea to him, these games were about generating drama through mechanics. So the story and the mechanics were, to say the least, cohesive to each other. And maybe that's why I believe that the gameplay in Genealogy is quite underrated. And to be honest, I actually like it more than the story, as a controversial opinion.
Oh my God, why?
I have stated it because I think that the gameplay reinforces a lot what the what the story is trying to get across. And it's very
Hmm.
cohesive. It's very cohesive with with what it sets itself to do.
I kind of think the Tellius games do a pretty good job of interweaving gameplay and narrative because I had just recently beaten those games, and they do a lot of things that I think tend to mesh well with the story. Whether it's their use of chapter objectives or other things like that. But I also kind of think at times that it's not always necessary to intertwine gameplay and narrative always in every situation. Because if your story requires certain gameplay imbalances, that might not be the best thing.
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, well, to me, it's important that not just that make that the story and gameplay intertwine, but also that they manage to express something. Because otherwise, why are you making an RPG? That's a big issue I have actually with with Blazing Sword and Sacred Stones, and to a much higher extent, Fates. Why are these games simulation RPGs? If they simplify the game, if Blazing Sword and Sacred Stone simplify the gameplay in order to each not to get across the story they're trying to convey, why are you making them simulation RPGs? Or why are you making them simulation RPGs if
Right.
the gameplay doesn't matter?
Right. Yeah, it's a very valid point.
Mm, Yeah, I mean let's face it, since Kaga left, they kind of lost the point of the franchise a little bit, don't you think?
Well, it has to do with what I've said. It's different. It's not. It's not necessarily better or worse, but I think that from that Binding Blade was the last one they kind of knew what they were doing, and Blazing Sword and Sacred Stones were were just trying to be more approachable to Western audiences.
Well, of course they were finding out they had a market in the West, so they tried to focus more on what Westerners will want. I've always said it that the Tellius series it's probably the most Americanized of all the Fire Emblem games, in my opinion.
What do you mean by most Americanized, if you don't mind my
I,
asking?
I mean, no, I mean it's that they have more elements that appeal more to Americans. Well, I mean, no, Westerners in general.
Mako, did you have something you wanted to say?
Mm, nothing for now. I mean, the moment when the things like characters and story were going down is when, as we all know, when Gaga left, and I hope the They should change the writer. What's happening with the new games? The franchise is going down, and for that, I hope it's more like the fandom too, because well, all the fan service, and for that more waves, and
Yeah, you mean that the fandom is becoming more whip-like or something, or what?
yeah,
Yeah, I think I kind of get it. I think that the main issue with I I don't want to say this, but I think that the main issue I have with the fandom is that they are too conformists. But I wouldn't want to dwell a lot of I, I wouldn't want to dwell a bit on that. So we have talked a lot about the gameplay and how we disagree with a lot of what people detract. Oh, we haven't covered something. It's the character balance. I wanted to talk about that as well. The character balance. A lot of people say that Genealogy is one of the most unbalanced games in the series. That holy wars, the holy weapons, I mean, holy weapons are overpowered and they break the game and all that stuff. But actually, uh, the more powerful weapons in this game are the light sword and the javelin.
The lights are in the javelin.
Yes,
Range weapons, basically.
yes, the actual strongest weapons in the game aren't the holy weapons, but rather the javelin and the light sword.
What makes you say that?
Well, the idea is that if you get enough kills with those weapons, they will eventually get critical hit. Critical hit. If you get 50 kills with these weapons, you get critical hit. And once you have that, you can pretty much start killing at 1-2 range, which is something that other, which is something that weapons other than Forsetti won't be able to achieve. And even then, Forsetti might not have the high critical ratio that a javelin with 100 deaths has. And I mean it seriously with the 100 kills javelin, because the LTC strategy uses a javelin with more than 50 kills. It uses Finn with more than with a javelin with more than 50 kills, effectively making Arthur with Forsetti obsolete.
Wow, that's a very strong claim, man.
Yeah, I never would have thought of that.
Yeah,
And again, I
and those are
sorry, go on.
weapons, and
Mhm.
the light sword and the javelin are very common weapons. Weapons that everyone can use. You can use them with Finn, you can use them with Oife, you can use them with Ares. Why would Ares use missile when he can use the javelin with 100 kills?
Well, I guess that goes to show you a problem, I guess, with the kill system.
No, I think it's ingenious because when you think about it, it kind of balances out the problem with the holy weapons, because at the highest degree of competence, they are not as powerful as we're led to believe.
They're still pretty powerful.
Yeah,
Well, but I like that.
I like them, and they make life very they make life
Simple,
very
easy.
simple against, for example, endgame bosses like Arbis. But when it comes down to common mooks, you would probably
Yeah.
prefer to use the light sword or the javelin or the brave sword, and you can have multiple weapons with more than 50 kills just like that if you play your cards correctly. So, and those are weapons that everyone can use, so everyone can actually become very powerful. just as powerful as your strongest units if you give enough investment and you play your cards right. So maybe the maybe it's not as unbalanced as we think we are, other than maybe the relationship between mounted units and unmounted ones.
You know, I've always said that Holy War's unit balance is a lot better than people give it credit for. Um, Everyone's just like, "Oh my gosh, mounted units are so much more better," blah blah blah, and it's like, uh, most Fire Emblem is mountain flyer dominant. That's not. It's just a lot easier to tell in Holy War because of how huge the maps are. But I mean,
Not only that, but the claim is also false because when you look at the top units of the game, you have Sylvia, Len, Lelia, but you also have Lana. Lana is also one of the strongest units in the game just because she can rescue and fortify from the very beginning. And she saves a lot of turns, and she's an unmounted unit that starts off as a cleric level 1.
yeah, and not to mention too, there are foot units like you mentioned that are better than horse units, and I think it's a lot easier to invest in a lot of different units in Holy War than it is in other games. Because I mean, because I mean, in what Binding Blade, I wouldn't want to invest in like Sophia, for example.
Yeah, that's true.
But
Whereas in genealogy, Taiti just trains herself.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot more unit viability than I think people give it credit for.
And unmounted units actually manage to be useful in certain chapters. For example, chapter 2 has Aura and other unmounted units be legitimately useful and relevant to the game. Just because you backtrack a lot, and it's a good idea to send some units to wait for the other castles to be available to seize, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
I think the low number of units in the game helps that a little bit because you have to use them all, so all of them feel really useful in some point.
Yeah, all of them feel useful at some point, and I think that's the more important thing when it comes down to balance, because I don't think that every unit has to be equally powerful, but but every unit should at least feel like they have a point in their life. Because if you see how the cast new Mister of the Emblem, you wonder what's the point of them being there.
Yeah, I was about to say. I think that's probably one element they took from Gaiden that works. It's just having a smaller cast and letting you use everyone. Because yeah, that I think that works. I think another thing that you have to take into account is also the weapon weights as well. Because that's I don't think that's something Holy War does particularly well. Is that some weapons weigh very little while other weapons weigh like a freaking brick.
Yeah, sadly, that's an issue I also have, and it's particularly painful when it comes down to magic that fire magic weights that much.
Yeah, especially when like wind magic can do just as much damage. I think all the wind tomes they have like the same might, but their weight is all different. That's the only real difference.
There are six weight. I someone in the chat asks if Asel is good. Um, I think he's better than Lewin. You are going to disagree, of course.
Uh, I I don't know. I think Levin's combat's probably better personally.
Yeah. Lewin's combat
Huh?
is very good, but the problem is that movement, and I know that Axel has crappy movement for like 3 or 4 chapters, but what he does in chapter 4 and 5 is something that Lewin really can't match because he can, as Axel can just go straight to Lombard in chapter 5 and 2 round KO him, something that Lewin would take a while to do. I think
Wait, he can 2 round KO Lombard? How?
with Elwind, if he
Excuse me, guys. I'll go do something. I'll be back in a bit.
okay, no problem.
Okay,
Yeah, you can.
Mako, you there?
I think she's in the chat or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fine.
No problem. We can
Yeah.
talk a bit about this little discussion. Yeah,
Yeah.
he can 2 round KO Lombard, I believe. He reaches Lombard in turn 3. I think that Chiki has in his LTC strategy to he uses as Azel to help with the Lombard boss kill, so that once he's weakened by Azel, Sigurd can just attack him and finish him off without the need of Forcetti.
Can't Levin just one hit KO them both with a critical hit from Holsetti? Because I know that's a thing.
Yeah, that's possible, but the issue is that Lewin takes quite some time to get to Lombard. So the idea is that Azel does it faster, and that's why he's better for the task.
I guess it goes to show you how much Holy War enemies suck.
Yep.
Because at least it seems to me that it doesn't seem that hard to get really high um, attack when you're facing in Holy War. It doesn't really. It's not very difficult to get the killing enemy range.
But I think that when people talk about balance, they don't take into account that a lot of these broken mechanics we discover, they took time to discover. This javelin thing I am mentioning has is a thing that was thought recently. It isn't common knowledge that was a lot of years ago, because as I just saw, you have been surprised by it. So I think that the idea is that we are this knowledge is discovered, and thus it's more deserved by the player. I mean, the player makes the mental exercise to discover these broken things, and they're actually fun to use. So why would we penalize them like Echoes did? Echoes actually penalized Warp and made it less fun to use.
I've never liked Warp, so I kind of wish they had just taken it away.
Well, I can say instead, I don't know, threat fighters with Devil Swords, for example, which have the highest attack in the game. That was pretty fun, and I took it away.
Devil Sword. Here, let's have a weapon that can backfire on you, you know?
Yeah, but Dread Fighters don't have the backfire penalty.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot.
In Gaiden exclusively, I mean in Echoes they do have it, and it's less fun to use it as a result.
Yeah, I guess if you really enjoyed that, then yeah, I guess the penalty would be a lot less fun. I can see why, but you know, when you're talking about balance, it makes me. I remember when I came to the incentive, the realization that not every unit is ever going to have going to be equally good across the board. It's just not going to happen in a game with a cast of between 40 to 70 characters.
It's actually even counterproductive, because the idea, part of the idea of Fire Emblem to me, is also to realize every person's worth. You understand what I mean? And
You said realize every person's flaws, right?
worth, and why are they useful for, and and well, if everyone is equally worthy, then that decision stops existing. So this strategic layer to realize a person's advantages in spite of their disadvantages, um, it's important. It's part of the idea of Fire Emblem too. That's why you want to keep people alive in order for them to help you because they have some works. They are people.
All
Yeah.
right, I'm back.
Hi. We were just
Hi.
talking about unit balance and trying and how it's probably not going to happen when you try to make everyone equally useful.
Yeah.
I actually think that will make the game pretty boring because if everyone is equally useful, what's the point of having so many options? I can just pick. I could just pick anyone, and it will have the same result. And what is the layer of deciding who is important for a task? What shouldn't happen is what I said, that people feel useless, completely useless. That's what should be avoided, in my opinion.
In my opinion, I think it should be more about. I mean, you can. I've always been more of a you can pick whatever whoever you want to play kind of Fire Emblem player. So, and I think the difficulty of the game will change depending on who you pick. So, and and you can pick whoever you want. And you can train them. It's gonna be harder sometimes. It's gonna be easier. It's not gonna change at all. But either way, you can still play the game. It's playable. You can beat it. So, but you will have to apply different strategies, and I think that's what I like about Fire Emblem because it gives you that option, that liberty. That's what I like about it.
I think I think what should be aimed for instead is kind of a neat, giving the characters a niche. It's like, oh, this character can do this thing,
Hmm.
that no one else can. You know, it's just finding a purposeful role for every other character.
Yeah, I agree with that. The that they have a purpose. At least it fits a couple of chapters that they exist for a purpose. Because having useless characters makes you wonder why they're even there. And genealogy actually do, doesn't fail that much at this because, as I've said, even unmounted units see some value in certain maps, and a lot of unmounted and some unmounted units are even staff users like Tina or Seth or Lana or Lewin. They can use staves or whatever it's pronounced,
Staves,
Yeah,
staves.
staves. Uh huh.
staves, and they can contribute by silencing an enemy or berserking an enemy. That that's a niche that I consider valuable in the context of this game.
You you want to know something funny? Every time I try to use silence in the game, I always always fail.
Doesn't silence have like 100% accuracy, or you mean in other
No,
games?
and no, in genealogy, I always try using it, but I always fail for some stupid reason. I don't know why.
Well, um, well, we have attempted to talk about the common complaints about this game,
Quick
but
question. Quick question. Somebody asked in the comments who we think are underrated Fire Emblem units.
um, I don't know, Isadora maybe, Deltia, yeah, Deltia, Isadora, uh, Luthier. There are a lot of units that are underrated.
Yeah, yeah.
Wait,
I
yeah,
Excuse me?
that Jada or Eco Sylvia?
We can't listen to you very clearly. Sorry.
You are talking about Echo or Jaden Sylvia?
We are talking about Fire Emblem in general, which units we consider underrated.
I see.
Um, I'd say Leith and Path of Radiance is underrated. Um, she she basically transforms into a Laguz like right at the beginning of the game when you need her the most. She has a high movement and she can double attack, and she actually starts out pretty good.
Yeah, she's actually good, to be honest. I don't.
That personality, though.
Yeah, that personality though.
Tsundere Kitty. Oh, at least she gets character development, sorta.
Yeah, she does. Yeah, she's not.
At least she has dialogue with Jill.
Oh boy.
I will say underrated in my case. I will say Ileana. It's very underrated in my opinion.
Oh,
Yeah. I usually see people trash talking Ileana. I don't know what you have seen.
Which game?
Both of them. Path of Radiance and Radiant Down.
Well, I think that she's actually one of the best units in Path of Radiance, so I'm kind of with you on there.
Everyone always go, oh, Soren, it's the best. Soren this, Soren that, Soren. No one likes Ileana.
Well,
Even you said it, Ronald. You
yeah, I know that I think that Soren is a better unit, but both of them can do pretty much the same things. It's just that Soren joins earlier and can be trained easier, but they do the same thing. They are pretty much the same unit. So if Soren is one of the best units in the game, Iliana also is.
what was I gonna say? Oh great. Now it's probably gonna slip my tongue.
Okay, I think that what I wanted to say is that now that we have um, talked about the main complaints about genealogy, what do you feel that are the biggest flaws of the game?
I will say, history-wise, it could do a little bit better in certain areas, but like explaining the background of certain characters, like we said, what happened to some of them after the Battle of Valhalla. Then, yeah, I will say history-wise, just that, and gameplay-wise. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of the individual cash thing, so I will go for a more general treasury myself. Those are my only complaints with the game. Otherwise, I think it's great.
What about you, Grant?
I think one of the biggest problems is that Sigurd and Selef can solo both generations. Um, I do kind of, I do kind. I know it's a problem with the whole series, but it's a lot more easier to spot in Holy War. So it's like, oh, yeah, and I guess also having kind of weak enemies, I guess, kind of hits the balance kind of weird. I would I would like to see if a remake ever does happen. I'd like to see stronger enemies in general. What was I gonna say? Oh, and I know we talked about the map design, but I do think it could be improved upon.
Yeah, it can.
And while we're at it, I'm a big fan of map objective diversity, like what Thracia does, or like the modern game, some of the modern games, the GBA games and Talius games. So throwing in like a defense chapter or an escape chapter, stuff like that.
But will that fit in the context of genealogy? That's the big question mark.
Oh, and weapon weights. Weapon weights is a big flaw.
Yeah, weapon weight is definitely a big flaw. What What do you think, Mako? What's to you the biggest flaw of this game?
Uh, that's a hard one. I don't. Uh,
Mako, are you still there?
Marco.
Well, she's probably not there. I don't know, but maybe I can go to my point.
Okay.
Okay.
And this is going to sound weird coming from me, but I noticed this in my last playthrough, and considering what we have talked about this whole time, this might sound weird, but um, I don't think that the game has aged well. And
Oh my god. No.
but
Yeah.
before you jump at me, let me explain because I don't, I'm, I don't, I don't believe that I don't believe of the accusations that this game is clunky or that this game is slow or anything like that. I don't care about this this concept for technopats or anything. I simply don't care about it. But the idea is that um, at this very point, at this very moment of recording, we live in a in a post Minecraft world, in a post Breath of the Wild world, in a post Witcher 3 world, and yeah, it's unfair to compare a game from um, 1996, but if we consider what this game should be able to offer now, it feels very limited. And a big reason why it feels very limited comes from precisely uh, the aspect that makes its point, that the design aspect that attempts to make its point, which is the inheritance system. Because of the inheritance system, once we realize how it works, it um, it it causes that on subsequent playthroughs we start to instrumentalize it. We start to think about how to optimize. And once we do that, the magic of playing a historical epic disappears. And psychologically, what we are making is playing a toy. Do you see where I'm going through with this? The
So you want more variability when it comes to the inheritance system or something?
I wasn't finished. It wasn't finished, but it's a bit complicated to explain.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a complicated idea, I but the idea, but once we this is a barrier, this video game stuff, but if the purpose is to convey this historical epic, and if only we can manage to do it from the first playthrough when we are going blind, what will happen to the drama generated by the gameplay in subsequent playthroughs if we start looking at it as a toy instead of what it's supposed to be?
So basically, you urge that eventually the games will start losing its magic because you've seen it. You will have seen it already.
Yes, you will. Not only that, but it will lose its magic because we will uh, stop looking at it as an as a medieval drama, as an historical epic, and instead just look it as a game.
Oh yeah, and once you start thinking about how to break it, it loses a lot of its dramatic impact, right?
Exactly, and
But wouldn't you say that for all Fire Emblem games?
yeah, and that's precisely a big issue I have with the Fire Emblem formula at this point. That it hasn't aged well, and it's very limited at what it tries to convey right now. And it's not just because this game's at least Genealogy attempts to create a world, and by its linear nature and by its system of inheritance to optimize playthroughs, we we can only experience the magic one time, and it will start losing its appeal.
But how will you counter that?
That's a big question mark to me because, to be honest, I'm not very sure how one would manage to do that because it's an issue the game has probably from its very conception. But it's more noticeable if you play the game after you have played more contemporary games. I, Advocate, I have told you about this game called This War of Mine a while ago.
Yep.
Yeah, and this game also generates stories on every playthrough just because it's randomized, because the personalities matter, because it hurts seeing you people degrade themselves. And there is also this other game called Invisible Ink, which also has procedurally generated levels that encourage efficiency on every playthrough. And you can ever memorize the levels because they're always new and you're always discovering new strategies and you're always pressure. You see
So
I'm
you
going where I'm going
so
with
you
you.
think adding a random element to Fire Emblem will help a little bit?
Pro- Not necessarily a random element, but something that allows the game to live more than once, to convey the same magic more than once.
Hmm.
I am seeing the chat that people are having problems with saying me that it has replay value, and I agree.
Yeah, but
It has
yeah,
replay value. I agree with that. It has depth and it has replay value, but
I think you're going more from the point that once you have exhausted all the pairing options, what after that? I think you're going even further than pairing, right? After all the pairings have been done, after all the strategies have been done, what's next? That's what you're trying to ask, right?
the game will eventually uh, stop losing its appeal. Exactly, you will eventually exhaust it. It's a limited experience.
Well, I mean, I will counter it by uh, I'm making like I said, adding a little bit of random element to the game, like diversifying more the options you'll get, having the maps, the way you play the maps affect the characters in certain ways, stats, adding um, personalities changes, like once some characters get more depressed or more joyful depending on what happens to them, but that will require a lot of in-depth micromanaging and complexity to the game, and that would be good, really. I would love to play a Fire Emblem that immersive, but I don't think most of the people in the fandom will appreciate that. I don't know. What do people think in the chat about that?
Well, they disagree, of course, but that's the issue. That's the thing. It's it's an issue I have with this game, and I say it with the pain of my heart because I legitimately love it. It means a lot to me, and but at this point, I feel I have exhausted it.
Yeah, so basically, oh wait, someone is asking, what do you all think about having randomized enemy spawns on some chapters where the spawn points change each turn?
I'll go first. It depends on the map. Some maps can handle enemy spawns randomized rather well. Others not so much, because I think for some maps the enemies have to be at a specific spot. Because if an enemy randomly spawns like in front of the player, that can incentivize turtling, which isn't very good.
Yeah, I will say, yeah, that will be challenging, interesting, but yeah, it's except it will be a lot surprising because one random spawn could be right next to your base, like the enemies appear and go, "What's up?" And you, oh my god, what am I gonna do? So yeah, that will be interesting. I will be up for that.
Hmm. Yeah, I believe it will be interesting, but um, we'll probably add more to that. Not just random enemy spawns, but also random, maybe even random enemy positions, or I don't know, something that makes the game alive, more alive in each playthrough.
Still
So
though,
yeah,
I'd be up for
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, me too. I mean, yeah, that level of in-depth and randomizations will definitely give the game a very extended lifestyle, but I don't know if the intelligent systems will be willing to go that far. I think they can. I mean, I wouldn't see the harm in it. I mean, Fire Emblem already has tons of fans, more with Awakening and Fate, so why not? I mean, give it a try. They have tons of money. What's the damage in experimenting a little bit? I'd say they should do it.
And that's the key reason why I'm kind of averse to the idea of Fire Emblem 4 remake, because don't get me wrong, I love the game, and even if I think it hasn't aged well, I don't think that a bit of polishment in their mechanics will change it that much. What I if if what I'm if you won't force me to make a to retell the story of Jogdral, I would probably just take the story and make the gameplay maybe different, because I'm averse to the idea of repeating experiences. Because if one has exhausted the game, why would one want to reenact it again? Especially with the technology we have right now, we can do great things. We have other games, contemporary games, contemporary simulation games that do great things as well. Also in the context of generating dramas through mechanics in warfare or in or in missions or whatever. We, it has been done, and Fire Emblem still keeps itself being conservative. Genealogy was born out of a desire of shaking things up, of making things different. So why wouldn't one live up to that ambition?
Hello? Anyone there?
Yeah, there.
Okay. Okay,
Has
good.
anyone listened to what I said?
Yeah.
Yep, yeah, we
Yeah.
heard.
My my headphones kind of went weird a little bit. But
Yeah,
yeah,
they should
go
do
on.
it. Why not?
Okay, in the comment it said if Fire Emblem 4 got remade, it would be extremely censored, only in the West. That's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
fear. That is a fear I'd have about the remake, is that they'd either try to water down certain plot elements or they would just try and remove something altogether.
I I wouldn't mind if they remove irrelevant some aspects that aren't really that relevant to the story, for the story to work. I mean, I could do without the incest, for example. If I
Mm.
don't mind it, but I could do without it. What
I think it's necessary for the story, Ronald,
why?
because that's the point of the whole game.
I mean, yeah, maybe the Ordres and Alvin's relationship should be
Yeah,
kept,
yeah, that's why I say it.
but I mean, like Ares and Nana, or this Selif and Julia
Oh, yeah,
subtext.
that can definitely get removed, but Alvis and Theodora would pretty much have to stay.
Nah, they have to
Yeah,
stay, because that has also a thematic. That also has a thematic point. There's also um, this is a sinful couple uh, producing the pretty much the Antichrist.
Right. Okay, so well, one of the comments says, "I don't think Fire Emblem 4's plot would work without incest at all." Well, like without Alvis and
Damn it,
Theodora
Mimi.
being incest, no, it wouldn't work. But
mm,
I don't know. Eris and Nana's not all that important, like Ronaldo said.
yeah, that's true. It could get removed, but I mean, if they are trying to recreate that feeling of medieval times, they used to commit incest, that level of incest, quite often.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not opposed to the idea of incest. I just think that it doesn't have to be there. It can stay or it can go away. I don't believe that it's that relevant for the plot to work. to me more relevant is that they keep the idea of this is this is an epic and we should this is an epic and we are telling the story of Jogran, of this continent, of this nation, and not some sentimental drama of feelings or something like that. I would totally hate that.
Although I mean, I think even if the game ends up to becoming rated M, how will do you think that will severely limit its sales? I mean, do you see people getting games they're not supposed to play all the time?
Doesn't Witcher 3 isn't Witcher 3 rated M? That game even has sex scenes and it sold like 20 million copies.
Wow.
I mean, what's the average age of people playing Fire Emblem is?
Well, I think that Awakening sold barely more than 1 million.
You know, I actually wonder if I actually wonder if that's what they should do. They should just try to make the Fire Emblem 4 remake seem hardcore to some people. I don't know. This is a. I'm not saying they should. I'm just wondering. Maybe it'll be like the forbidden fruit, and then everyone's gonna want to have it.
Yeah, I mean, do it. I will be okay. If Deadpool could succeed, this one can too.
It will be really weird, and I will just like that the story is preserved, or at the very least that they don't ruin the story just because of making this game rated M for adults, because that happens sometimes, that they ruin the story just by wanting to make them for adults, and at the end it becomes more childish.
Right.
What do you?
Well,
Yeah.
to be fair, this is the age where Game of Thrones is popular, so maybe being dark and blood soaked and incest is the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, if people want to play this game, they have plenty of ways to get it. I mean, they can buy it online. They can ask some people to buy it for them. I mean, I imagine if that happens, I will imagine someone in the Facebook group will go, "Hey, give me the money and I could buy you all games." I could see that happening.
I'd be willing to do that.
Like, hey, go get me alcohol from the store. People will do it. I mean, why not?
Yeah, that's true. Hashtag elitist hype, hashtag elitist united.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, when you put it like that, I mean, if they go hardcore with the game remake, I will be okay. Just don't give me blue hair Nana, that's all.
Oh, heck no.
What?
Oh, gosh.
Don't give me what?
Blue hair Nana.
No.
Oh god, no, 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 no.
No! Hashtag not my Nana.
No, not my Nana either.
Not my Nana either, yeah. Oh well. Yeah, I can deal with a. To be honest, I can actually deal with a regular or passable plot, even if it's a remake on genealogy, only if the gameplay is solid enough to compensate it. Because as you know, I am more of a enthusiast for gameplay, and the thing that makes me more enthusiastic about genealogy is how the gameplay actually conveys a war feeling more than the actual story, which I like a lot, by the way. I like it a lot. So I can tolerate it. Breath of the Wild, for example, this year it has a kind of childish story, but the gameplay being what it is made up for it immensely.
Oh, you gotta see the comments for this. Blue-haired Nana equals Sasha from Terran Saga.
Yeah, I love Sasha from Terran Saga. She's awesome.
And now they're saying blue-haired Lars say hi, guys.
Oh, God.
Oh, no, 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 no.
Please no. Hashtag not my Lars say.
No, not my Larcy.
All right. do you have any particular conclusion to draw about this discussion?
Well, I will say that this game it's very different from all other Fire Emblem games, and I think that's good. I always feel like Kaga always want to experiment because Fire Emblem 1 it's very standard, then he experiments with Gaiden and it didn't go that well. He went back to a more standard formula with Fire Emblem 3, and then he went for Fire Emblem 4 and it was successful. Then he went for Thrasha for a more traditional. Seeing that pattern, I kind of feel that maybe someone in intelligent system was limiting his possibilities and that's why he left. And then you get to see Tyrion Saga, Berwick Saga, Vestaria Saga, and all the things he could have accomplished. But it all started with Fire Emblem 4. I think it represents a spirit within the game that it has to come back. It was very daring to explore new ideas, new grounds, more focus. And if they ever remake the game, they should. I mean, whatever. I will accept flu fucking her nana, no, whatever. I will get over it, but just retain that feeling that Fire Emblem 4 had. That's all I ask because that's what makes Fire Emblem 4 great, in my opinion.
Um, what I want to say. Yeah. A mere observation of what you said. You said the things that Kaga would have done. Fire Emblem in space. Remember,
Oh yeah, Fire Emblem in space. That would be awesome.
Oh boy. Oh gosh.
Kaga actually had that idea. He said it on an interview of Fire Emblem Gaiden. Okay, Grant, do you have any conclusion to draw out of this discussion?
Yeah, I feel like I feel, well, at least from this discussion, I really feel like the theme of the whole cyclical nature of history and the parent and the children inheriting mistakes from the parents has been a big thing. I also just love Holy War for its dark, ballsy political story. I think I'd like to see that in future Fire Emblem games is just go darker, kill characters, be more willing to have actual, good, well-written villains. Be willing. I want to see some more political machinations. That would be something. I think I love Holy War just for that. The darker nature where the bad guys are smarter and where consequences are actual consequences. That's a big thing about Holy War, and that's part of that spirit for me.
All right. Um, Marco, what about you? What conclusion do you draw out of this discussion?
A little thing. Um, Kara is dying watching hero, heroes, chapters, and warriors one. And well, we need Kaga back for more instance. I mean, story, yeah, and stuff.
Okay, so I guess I have to describe my conclusion. Well, I the viewpoints that I've received from chat and also from what you have said have been interesting for me because I've replayed this game recently and it got me thinking about what I want from this series, what I expect from it. Um, and genealogy reminds me that the thing that I like about this series is precisely that warfare simulation aspect that Kaga originally intended for his franchise. And I think that has been lost, but I think that has been lost, but and probably a remake a copy and paste remake or an HD version or just polishment wouldn't do justice to the game. What I love about genealogy the most is that story-wise, is that at the very at the very end it still advocates for hope, for the future, even in the hostile world that is neutral. Even if this world always proves that no, these ideals can work here. Um, Stop having these childish thoughts. Um, to me, it's meaningful that at the very end, the game manages to advocate for more hope, for a future, for still retaining that ideal, even if it's a more in a more mature and more nuanced way. That's at least the message I end up getting from it on a personal level.
Yeah, I can see that.
Me too.
So yeah, those are the conclusions we draw out of this game. Do you want to keep answering more questions from the audience, or would you like to wrap up because we have been talking for 3 hours?
Uh, I'm good.
Yeah, if people have questions in the audience, they can throw them out now.
Okay, people, do you have questions?
Yeah, I said let's give them a couple of minutes or something, so they can ask.
I might search for questions on Reddit
Oh,
Oh yeah,
because people have been asking on Reddit.
no.
what do they say in Reddit?
Yeah, I was about to ask.
But I don't think many people joined from
Ooh,
Reddit
we
or
have a
what.
we have a question. Favorite moments in Draw?
Oof. To me, it's Selif's meeting with his father.
The ghosting?
Yeah, the ghost, the meeting, the meeting with his father's ghost.
Um, I will say my favorite moment is when if you get to kill Hilda with Tini. Oh my god, that it's beautiful.
She deserves it.
Oh my god, the way she says this. I don't think so. Watch me, mother. I'm gonna kill this fucking bitch.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it was amazing that moment to me.
I think some of my favorite moments are killing Elvis because it was just like, oh, finally I got revenge on you, you douchebag. That's what you get for killing my army. Um, I think another favorite moment since he mentioned Yggdrasil, Thracia. I think in Thracia was just warp skipping chapter 22, my second playthrough, because it's like, oh, that chapter 22 gave me nightmares for days, man.
I understand that sentiment.
Yeah.
Now that we are talking about strategies, a beautiful one for me was to realize that uh, Karen could fly skip chapter 9 in Trace
Oh yeah.
776 because
Oh gotcha.
if you go through that map normally, those Dragon Knights are going to reach you and they're going to murder you with those killer lances. So it actually conveys very well that feeling of, God damn it, I'm being prosecuted, better I run away as fast as possible.
Ah. Okay, so
Uh,
Uh,
next.
what do you have? There is another question.
yeah, what our favorite pairings in general. Or Fire Emblem, I think.
Um, I've said Salif and Tin.
That's hard for me. I will say, no, I don't think I have a favorite in general.
Uh, let's see. Oh yeah. I I like DRP, and I like to head canon Ike and Alencia. I don't know. It's just it seems kind of they seem kind of good together because in Path of Rage, he's always like, "Tee my lord Ike." So you know,
Ike and Valencia. So
Yep.
you're not a fellow supporter of Ike and Reynolds. It's a joke. Don't take it seriously. Uh,
okay. Oh, sorry, go on.
but that was added in the localization. So, but whatever. I can see why people ship them. To be honest. Um, So people are asking, you were talking earlier about incorporating story and gameplay. What are some good examples of this homogeny from past games that could or should come back in later titles? Um,
Um,
okay,
in
you.
Path of Radiance, there's the Ike versus Black Knight fight, which, because at that point in the game, it's like you kind of have to beat him relying on luck, because he's just that much more experienced than Ike.
Um, I think that fight is a little bit random. I don't know. It depends. It's very luck dependent. Or what do you think?
I think it's very luck dependent if you don't have Nihil. I don't play it anyways, but that's what I know. That's luck dependent. If luck reliant, if one doesn't have Nihil.
The only feature I think could come back already came back. The get rid of the triangle system. Get rid of the weapon triangles, please.
When it comes down to story and gameplay, there are, well, I'm not sure how relevant this is, but there is a moment in Gaiden and Shadows of Valencia to me that is very special. That and the game doesn't even ask it for me. I just for some reason do it, and I just whenever I finish chapter 3 and I'm entering chapter 4, I just tend to contemplate the map that has opened up, and I see the path that I have towards I have expecting for me, and then I just move the cursor to see the path I've left behind, and that gives me a sense of how much I have advanced through the game and how distant I am from my hometown, and I think that moment is particularly evocative, especially with the music sounding in the background, because again, this is the idea of wars of conquering, and and the map of Gaiden is in Star Shadows Valencia is structured to always go to the north. The progress is from one side of the continent to another, and yeah,
Yeah.
that's what makes all gives me a sense of progress, and I think that this feeling of distance from the hometown is an interesting uh, blend of story and the design of the game.
Quick question: who's Blazing Knight?
Uh,
Oh my God. Well, he's a YouTuber who makes Fire Emblem videos, and he has made some Fire Emblem videos that are, well, not to ditch too much on the guy, but it's not good. Not very good.
The reason why I ask is because we gotten like 2 questions about him.
yeah,
Uh,
I don't like him at all. I just think that he overextends himself when making his videos, and it actually makes me become a perfectionist and try to sum up everything whenever I write something.
yeah, I think that's his main problem as a YouTuber. He takes forever to deliver a point. I don't know if he does it to extend the time of the video and get more ads, or he just cannot summarize his point, but he takes forever to say everything. And the things he says are very coming from someone who clearly doesn't have enough experience in what he's talking about.
Yeah, I don't want to say these words, but he is just a hack.
Well,
And if you, yeah, there you go.
okay. Let's see.
Someone was
Uh,
Current
asking.
cast of Warriors.
Excuse me, Mako?
Dylan says, what do you guys think about Fire Emblem Warriors current cast?
What do we think about Fire Emblem Warriors?
Warriors. Oh,
Warriors.
I've never played it. I'm not interested in playing it. I'm not gonna buy it.
Well,
I stopped caring after they said they will only have characters from Akinea and Awakening and Fates.
well, to me, um, I I'm weirded out of the reaction for this game because on the one side, um, I wasn't going to buy it even if Miley was going to or Tyler was going to appear on it simply because I don't like the Warriors games. But that well, yeah, that's a personal perspective. I don't like these games, but um, I'm weirded out because people seem to be wondering more about the paraphernalia rather than the actual game, rather if the game is actually good, and that makes me worried of what the core fan base actually wants. Do they want to be pandered? Is this? But if that's what people complain about the newer fans supposedly, why are they so focused on being pandered? That's what I don't get.
Well, you have to remember that Warrior games that are modeled after other franchise are usually there for fan service. Gundam Warriors, Hokuto no Kenshi Warriors, um, Zelda Warriors, whatever Warriors. It's all about fan service and getting famous characters in. So that's their main interest. Just have who's gonna be there to slash people. That's all they care about in the Warrior games.
Then the gameplay doesn't matter, even less of a reason for me to play it.
No, it really doesn't matter. It's just smash buttons. That's it. That's what people want with the Warrior games.
Well, I'm not gonna play it, so what? I don't care about it at this point. Just no, it's just zero emotional attachment.
We're just waiting for hentai of the girl. That's all.
Ooh, here's a question. What do you think about Tearing Saga and Mysterio Saga?
Daring
To be
Saga, it's amazing. Yeah, go, Michael.
I think that is better than Fire Emblem, to be honest.
Theory Saga better than Fire Emblem. Well,
Well,
I
except Fire Emblem 4 and 5, obviously.
yeah. To me, Turing Saga is kind of middle of the road uh, when it comes down to my ranking. But middle of the road is, but I still like it. It's still ranked as among the ones that I like. But now that we're on it, I think it's a better remake of Gaiden than Shadows of Valencia.
Yeah, in many ways, yeah.
I've only played half of Tearing Saga. I liked it. I thought the story was kind of meh. It was kind of just middle of the road. Not really all that great or not really all that bad. Don't remember much about the characters from a personality standpoint, but the gameplay was okay-ish. It's kind of middle of the road, at least the impression I got. I've never played Mysterio Saga. Want to play it? I want to finish Tearing Saga, but PS PlayStation emulators just screw me over.
I'm waiting for a patch to come for Bestaria Saga to play it because I don't want to play it in Japanese because what I like about Ka it's his story. So I want to see what Bestaria Saga it's all about.
I played it in Japanese and it's fun. It's a fun game, but the issue that I have with it is that it's very conservative, and it's not Kaga's fault. He made the game with a program and without budget, so he just made it for the love and for the sake of it. But it's hard to deny that it's conservative. Yeah, Don also said that, but it's true. It even applies to the story. It even applies to the story and the structure. I think that Shadows of Valencia takes a lot from Turing Saga. Even this idea of characters interacting with each other during the cutscenes, or even the or even the gameplay that it's throwing path between two armies. Um, a joke that me and Atoka tend to have is that Blazing Sword is a ripoff of Tearing Saga.
Yeah, it's a ripoff.
God damn it, Maeda. Because when you
Okay,
think,
next
yeah,
next next
this
question. This is primarily for Grant and any others who feel comfortable answering. Which Fire Emblem has the best or most interesting religious slash deistic themes? Uh,
Hmm. Depends on focus because the focus is religion is bad or religion is what shapes the world. I don't know.
I do have an actual answer for this. I was talking with well, my answer would be Gaiden and Shadows of Valencia. Um, I was talking with a video game critic about this, one of my favorites, and he's also a religious person, and we were talking about how this game suggests that the faults of the deities are tied to the faults of their inhabitants, and and we believe that this is probably a nuanced take on what the relationship between gods and humans is, or at least in in the context of the series.
honestly, I'd say Fire Emblem kind of handles religion and deity just all the same. It's just the gods are always bad. Humans need to overcome gods. Humans just need to forge their own, make their own morality. Because like the gods are always the bad guys. It's rare to see a deity that's a good guy. I guess you could argue Yune, but even then, there's still negative aspects to that. I just say they're just all kind of
Uh,
equally bad.
what do you think of Elimin?
Does she
Of
count?
Elamine from the Ellaby games.
Yep.
I guess she's positive, but kind of forgettable, I guess.
She's just there. You mean? Yeah, it's probably the best take. But now that I think about it, don't the the Crusaders count as some sort of gods? For example, Seti or Narga or something like that. Don't they count as gods? And they also intervene in human
Mm.
affairs.
Well, I say they're more like mythological, heroic figures than gods, actually.
Hmm.
I wouldn't call them gods, really. I mean, the dragons, maybe, but the Crusaders themselves, no, I don't
Yeah,
think they count as
I
gods.
maybe meant the dragons.
Oh, yeah, the 12 dragons. The dragon tribes. Yeah. Yeah, I guess they're very. At least people in both Akine and Yugdral perceive them as gods. But I don't think they want to portray themselves as gods to the people. At least I don't get that impression from Naga and the others.
Yeah, now that I think about it, they've always said that Naga's not actually a god. Just people just think she is because she's really strong.
Hmm. All
She
right.
can kill Grima, though.
Who
She can kill Grima, though.
who can kill Grima? No, no.
Naga.
Naga.
Okay. True. Here's a question. Favorite OST of all the franchise?
For me, it's kind of there are three games that tie for that. There's Holy Wars OST because I love Birth of a Holy Knight and I love Julius's theme, And then there's the Shadows of Valencia OST, which I think is actually pretty amazing. I think the last one's kind of, I think it's kind of Radiant on, although I do like a little bit less than I used to, but I still think it's really good.
I say the same. Neutral has the best OCT in my opinion, but
Mhm.
I think there are tracks in better and other games are I like. For example, to me the best final boss theme in the entire game is the battle against Ashura. That theme it's epic, it's intense, the drums, everything makes it really good.
My favorite theme in the entire series is that song that went by Juliana Shano. That sounds that's pretty much the song with Quan and Edling singing to their son that they are going to take care of him even if in the afterlife. That one is
Oh
my
yeah, Wind.
favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I guess that's what everything pretty much.
Yeah, that's it. I think that's everything.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast, everyone who is listening. And well, it has been a pleasure to participate in this with all these participants. Thanks, Atokat, Grant, and Mako for joining in. It has been
Yeah.
it has been
Yeah, this was awesome.
it was awesome for me as well. This is actually the first time I talk so much in English in public, so it was interesting for me.
Sorry for that, really. Who bet its fate?
um,
No,
do we even have words for that?
Which one?
There's a
no, there's a
there's a question.
question.
How bad
Who
is
bet its
fates?
fate?
How bad is Fates? Pretty bad.
Well,
Really, really bad.
I I don't think it has
Sun-
anything good.
Sunquest has some good maps, but characters, story, announcing routes are terrible.
Okay, I think people are saying goodbye, so I think we should wrap up.
Yeah, pues.
So goodbye, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Yeah,
Okay, see you. Thank
see
you.
ya. Thanks. Yeah, bye.
Okay.